Welcome to B2B No Bull.
That's right, no double speaker gibberish, no talking heads. This is a safe place to talk about what you as professionals in the space can do to look like heroes to your bosses, make sales very happy, bring success to the organization, and that bottom line. Let's get started.
Hi, everybody. Welcome back to another episode of B2B No Bull, where we actually talk, about marketing with absolutely no buzzwords.
And I'm her slightly wiser, slightly older brother, Mark Brohan. And today we are diving into an issue that's just top of mind with anybody in marketing, let alone the job market in general, which is the issue is the fear of job security in a world being taken over by AI.
Yeah, I would totally agree with that. There's kind of two ways of looking at it, right? And our guest is going to help us navigate all of this. The first way is, oh my God, it's going to take my job. And the second way is, no, it's going to give me superpowers. So maybe we can really focus on the positive here.
So like Johnny Cash would say, we're going to walk the line because you're mine. I walk the line. Today, we are joined by Drew Neisser, founder of CMO Huddles, host of the podcast Renegade Marketing Units, and a guy known for two things, interviewing CEOs and wearing a penguin hat.
Yeah, welcome, Drew. And I'm just going to add, you've interviewed over 600 CMOs. And your podcast, it's Renegade Marketers Unite, right?
Correct. Yes.
You're like the OG of marketing podcasts. So we bow down to you.
Oh my gosh.
We get the gurus of these places. So anyway, Drew, we can't wait to hear your thoughts on AI anxiety, the future of marketing jobs, and specifically how marketers can turn this moment into their advantage.
But I do want to back up just 1 second. Let's just kind of start with a little bit more about Drew, from Drew maybe even. So you call yourself Penguin in Chief. I think Mark mentioned your firm, and everybody's at that level is, flocking awesome. Wanted to make sure I said that right.
You did. You did well.
So tell us a little bit about all that.
So it starts with I'm snorkeling with my wife in the Galapagos, and 6 Galapagos penguins swim around me, and that was a wonderful experience. And when we got back on the ship, I learned from a naturalist that a group of penguins is a huddle. And so, immediately, I literally at that second texted the designer of our logo and said, figure out how to get penguins on it. But what's interesting is that later, as I got back to the mainland, if you will, is that these curious, resilient, and problem-solving birds are like the parallel to the community group, like exponentially. And I have to ask you a fun fact because it tells a lot of the story right here. So take a guess at what the differential temperature between, say you've got a penguin huddle of 2,000 birds. What is the differential temperature inside the huddle and outside the huddle? Wild guess.
Oh, wow. I even saw March of the Penguin and don't remember the answer to this question. So,
I don't think they answered. I don't think that fact came up there.
I don't feel stupid.
But take a guess. Take a wild guess. I mean, look, it's
30 degrees.
30 degrees. Good guess. Mark.
32.69.
Oh,
Jesus.
Well, I guess in that case, you're closer. But the answer is 70 degrees.
Really?
Which is kind of mind-boggling. And remember, they're doing this without a leader, and they're actually rotating in and around and together. And by the way, some of the penguins in the inside of the huddle get so hot, they have to go and roll in the snow. And it could be minus 20 degrees out, and they're rolling in the snow to cool down. But what I love about this mascot and metaphor is that CMOs, first of all, they get it and they have fun and they appreciate the brand aspect of it too. But it is warmer in a huddle when CMOs are sharing, caring and daring, as we like to say. They're sharing their challenges and sharing their solutions. They just feel they leave the huddles a little bit warmer, which we love. And I have to add one important thing, because A lot of people adopt animal mascots. I'm talking about you, say Munsingware or Pittsburgh Penguins. And they're, appropriators. We're not. We donate 1% of revenue to the Global Penguin Society, which is the leading penguin preservation and research organization in the world. So there it is. That's the penguin story.
And it's very admirable. And I love that a light bulb just went off and just kind of inspired you to put it all together, and that the pieces of the puzzle worked so well. Good job.
Thank you. Well, we are in the marketing and branding world, and I feel like it helps if you can lead by example.
Absolutely. I don't think Mark and I can claim that we were inspired by steer. I think we were inspired by steer poop.
Right. Well, for the rest of the show, it's going to be no bull, yes penguins. All right.
All right, you got it.
If you and I add up our answers, we're close to 70. but I think the bigger question is, if you line up 2,000 CMOs or 2,000 penguins, who audibles at the line of scrimmage? I think that's what people really want to know.
Okay.
But we'll come back to that.
I didn't even understand that question.
Yeah, what's up with football? Because, a huddle in football. I think I followed, but,
I can turn
too many players on the field, Mark. Too many players. Yes.
We're hearing a lot of fear right now. To kind of get back to our topic at hand, marketers are wondering if AI will replace them. So what do you think?
The fear is justified. I think every job is at risk. Every white collar job is at risk. At the same time, two things can be true. You can be, people are going to lose their jobs and people are going to keep their jobs. And the people who are going to keep their jobs are going to be the ones who know how to use these tools to the greatest effect. And I could go on, but it's pretty simple. There are going to be people, sadly, that will be left behind. And the CMOs it's funny, I talked to a CMO earlier this week, and they were energized by the transformation that this is enabling. They did admit, however, that if they were starting from scratch, their team would look completely differently, but got 100 members of the team and they have to sort of gradually deal with that. And we can talk about that because I think that's a conundrum that a lot of bigger CMOs with bigger groups are facing. But anyway, right now, to me, in the conversations we're having, it's an incredibly exciting moment to be leading a marketing department.
Right, but where you started was that there is reality to job insecurity. So can you tell us what marketing jobs might there be that vulnerability?
I think you have to look at it as, are you using these tools to not only do your job, and this is the really interesting thing, not just do your job, but to do more than your job. And I realize that there's this thing called AI burnout that's happening. Also, people who are heavy users are using it so much that they're not stopping work ever. Because it's like, I got an agent running over here and I got an agent running over here and they're all doing so many things and I better check on that agent. And it can be too much. And so there's that aspect, but let's park this over here for a moment. If you are an employee of a company and you are not using these tools right now to help you do your job better, more efficiently, smarter, more effectively, then you're probably in trouble. Your job is at risk. And that doesn't matter whether you're an assistant copywriter or the CMO.
Can we unpack that for just a sec, Drew? Because one of the more interesting talks I've heard in recent months was given by the economist Rebecca Patterson. And it was all about how AI is driving the economy. And there's two quick takeaways. Number one, AI was one cornerstone of what was holding up, our economy prior to this whole Gulf War business. Secondly, big tech, meaning Google, Amazon, Meta, Oracle, on down the line, how they're paying for this massive expansion that they're doing is they're robbing Peter to pay Paul by gutting employees. So my question is, do marketers have a chance to even learn a new skill set? I mean, let's say they're embracing AI to do everything they possibly can, but through no fault of their own, they're next in line on the chopping block.
Yes, it's true that these companies, and there's going to be, that I was listening to Hard Fork this morning, and all those companies that you mentioned, and then some were covered as companies that are laying off. But some of this is, and the journalist on that show pointed out, some of this is a little bit AI washing is they probably needed to cut anyway, or they're using AI as an excuse to cut. I'm not saying that AI won't lose jobs, as Rebecca, the economist, said. It's definitely going to, but it's also creating jobs. All those, for every layoff at a big company, there's new companies starting right and left, and they're hiring people. And they're going to hire marketers as well. Now, again, there are some jobs. We work pretty closely with Amanda Kalo from OneMind, who's created a superhuman SDR that's phenomenal. And I do think that there will be fewer SDR jobs, but that doesn't mean there will be fewer sales jobs necessarily. They'll just be doing different things. So yes, I think, I am not completely convinced that there is going to be billion-dollar companies with 3 people running them, as some folks have offered. And look, smarter minds than I would probably may disagree with that. But what I'm seeing is that the tools are enabling people to do more. And if marketing is hitting its pre-agreed targets for sales and supporting sales, they're not going to gut marketing if it's working.
That is totally reasonable. And I've heard you kind of mention that this feels like another industrial revolution, right? So tell us a little bit about how you frame that. And we're at the beginning of the industrial revolution, and you just kind of talked about, a little bit of what the future might hold. Can you tell us a little bit more about what you mean by that?
Yeah, it's funny. I just listened to a sort of American history book that sort of chronicled, I think it was about 1818 to 1848, and the transition that the workforce went through in that period, which is just sort of beginning industrial revolution, because you have trains and you have steam power and you have certain things that are transforming. And what happened was a lot of farmers moved to cities and got jobs. They stopped farming and they got jobs in the cities, starting to work at factories. What really, it's easy when you think about this and you say, okay, automobiles, a whole group of people who were related to to horses and carriages and fixing those horses and feeding those horses, and all of those jobs disappeared. And then a whole new set of jobs up, gas station attendants, not a great job, but, get all sorts of other jobs, tire manufacturers and other ways, factory jobs to create the cars and build the roads for the things. So you have to, and, ultimately more jobs came out of this. Now it's bumpy. It's not, a free market is really lumpy and bumpy. And so you asked earlier about disruption from AI. Are we going to see some types of job like the carriage driver go completely away, and those folks are going to have to be reskilled and retrained? Yeah, and it's going to be painful. And I think certain countries will be enlightened about retraining their workforce. But I also think that those countries will be perhaps changing their educational system. Like the education system in the U.S. changed at the beginning of the 20th century when Rockefeller said, I need a certain type of people with a certain kind of training. And he changed the education system. I think that is upon us as well. And when that happens, that imbalance that we foresee can start to be corrected, not without a lot of pain.
Yeah.
I'm not suggesting that. But
let's not forget key byproducts. If we didn't have the agrarian to the Industrial Revolution, we never would have had the Beverly Hillbillies. So there really is some things to take in stock here. But I want to get tactical if I could.
Please.
One of the things you talk about is building a strategic AI framework for marketing. What does that look like, do you think?
So here's the thing that I noticed in the first year and a half too, that AI was a solution in search of a problem. A lot of the CMOs were advising their team, hey, here's ChatGPT, go play. Go figure out what you can do with it. And the obvious the challenge that you had it, and the reason why so many studies showed that these pilots weren't working is that you weren't trying to solve business problems. You were just seeing what the tools can do. Well, it's like, give me a hammer. I can probably break something, right? Which I, have been known to do. So if we have a framework, and by the way, there are many strategic frameworks that could work, and it sort of depends. Maybe the company already has an operating system that they use. But look, here's one that is I have found useful, which is simply prioritize use cases. Like if you're the head of marketing, you could do two things. You can help drive revenue by doing a number of things that build a brand and do things, or you can make your cost per acquisition more efficient. And those are not even ors, those are ands. But if you look at the world that way, and then you say, okay, let's focus on revenue and what AI could mean to revenue. That's a big question, right? It's a real challenge. So you try to break it down and so forth. So, but once you set a problem, like what I like about efficiency we want to be able to, this same team, double our output of, say, high quality content, right? That's a goal. Not a great goal, but it's a goal that you could look at. So you prioritize your use cases, and there are a lot of use cases, and we can talk about that later. But then before you actually do something, you've got to do some audits, you got to fix your data, and you got to build a tech stack. And this is a step that is often skipped. It's like, oh, I got one guy is using ChatGPT, another one is using Claude, a third one's using Google and Notebook LM. And suddenly you have what the exact same problem that you have with MarTech is you have a bunch of tools that are underused. And you have people who aren't trained on it. So
exactly right. Or to your point, you've got a bunch of disparate tools being used by separate individuals on the same team, and now nobody can connect the data.
Yeah. And so data is at the middle of this. I mean, if some of the goals, for example, you could say, we could be a lot more effective if we could personalize the experience, the entire customer experience from start to finish, right? That's been a dream of marketers for a long time. And frankly, we've enjoyed that ability every time we go to Amazon, it's pretty darn streamlined. They kind of know who you are, and people who like this, like that. And we can see it on Netflix, right? You like this show, you'll probably like this show. They're already doing things like that. But AI, if you have good data in the beginning, our opportunity to create something amazing that is puts your customer. And I'm going to pause here for a second and I want to make sure we come back to this. There's an overall strategy that's missing right now that could change the way you use it. So for example, if we say our North Star is the customer, and we want to be the company that every single customer sings our praises when they wake up in the morning and when they go put their head on the pillow, then you said, okay, boom. The customer is really at the center. Then how you use these tools, how you prioritize your use cases, what kind of data you need to do that, what tech you need, starts to flow pretty naturally. And then, so you can then go to operationalize, like it's people, it's workflows, it's governance. And there is that dark side on this thing, which is, someone could get really excited about agentic. They could pull an agent in, and they could absolutely, if they're not careful with the right governance tools, put the company at risk, put a database at risk. So there are security risks that are enabled by some of these tools, and a lot of people don't realize that. So I'm just throwing that out there. And then, so we've prioritized what we want to do, because this is where we're driving the company. We're auditing, we're fixing the data, we build a tech stack, then we operationalize it we need these people with this kind of workflow that may be automated, and we need some governance. Then you can scale what works. That's a kind of framework. Again, there are dozens, but I wanted to share that because that helps this problem with Go Play is it's to me, it's go rethink your business challenge.
Absolutely. And I think that, to your point, thinking about business use cases, thinking about what are the prompts, understanding what are the questions that customers are asking. These are all kind of new customer experiences, and we all are always striving to give the customer the best experience and maybe move them to that evangelical stage that you just mentioned, where they think about you all the time. You're in their mind and their heart and their wallet. So those are the real positives I see coming out of this industrial revolution, that may change how we can interact with these customers and make them even more part of our brand.
One of the things that's kind of interesting, a little personal perspective, is I'm pretty immersed in AI being a business journalist. I write about a lot of AI applications for several markets, including e-commerce. But there are days I feel like I'm empowered with this new tool set, or I'm just a frickin' dinosaur, get out of the way. So I want to kind of ask you about that. With AI generating content, analysis, and ideas, what becomes the most human critical skill? Or to rephrase it, what do you believe critical thinking will be the defining art of the AI era?
It's such a good question, and it's such a hard question to answer on a macro level. So if, for example, if we talk to, and I've had this conversation with educators who run major universities and ask, so how important is, for example, grammar and understanding grammar in order to be able to write? And then how important is being able to write in order to be able to think? And there's a through line there that these things are building blocks. And so I'm going to express a personal concern, and I've written about this a bit, which is critical thinking is a muscle that you build up over time. It's like judgment is something that you're not born with judgment. There is no such thing as common sense. You learn judgment through trial and error. It's like my daughter put her finger in an electrical socket when she was 7 years old. Okay, she probably didn't do that again for the rest of her life. That was a way of learning, not a great way, but it's a thing. So I remember, and it's funny, I wrote this post and many people have it, when both in college and then again in the business world, I had a boss who redlined my first 4 memos that I had written that were supposed to go to a client. And it looked like a redacted CIA thing. I mean, it was brutal. And eventually it stopped being that way. And what's interesting is, as I learned to write in this business format, I also learned to think better and more broadly about it. So he's teaching me to write in a business style, but also teaching me to think. And this is the thing that I'm worried about the most, is you cannot replace your brain with these tools. You can use them as thought partners if you use them the right way. And I think that's a critical thing.
Can I ask a follow-up? I mean, if you keep in the timeline for AI to where we are now, we're not even talking 2.5 years. That's how fast this stuff is coming on.
Yes.
So we talked about ChatGPT. We talked about go play with it and the pros and cons of doing that. Now, we're within, if we're not there now, we're clearly within, in the marketing world, 12 months of having AI going from being a task performer to critical thinking. And I'm taking a crash course in Claude. And boy, is it interesting what that stuff can do. But having premised that, my question is, how do you balance critical thinking with not letting the tool do all the work for you, but you becoming the critical thinking master of the tool? I mean, I'm struggling with that. So if I'm struggling with it, I think maybe others are as well. Any thoughts on that?
I do. And so I'm going to steal directly from Jeff Woods, who wrote a book called The AI-Driven Leader. And he has a framework called the CRIT framework. I'm happy to walk you through that pretty quick to explain it. But it really helps you sort of understand the difference between give me answers and be a thought partner. And that just mental mindset here is, I don't, yeah, if you're asking a question like, hey, what's 2 + 2? Great. But if you want to explore strategies, for example, this framework is simple: CRIT. C is for context, R is for role, I is for interview, and T is for task. And I'll tell you the great unlock in a second. So context is just, how much information can you give it? We get back to the data. How much more, do you have a lot of data or a little data? Is it speculative? Do you need it to go get more data for you? But you have to give them the context of the problem that you're trying to solve. Then you define the role. So, it used to be, you are the smartest strategist in the world, right? And that's fine. You can do something like that. But a role, whereas you are the smartest strategist in the world who is going to be my thought partner, is a little better. The next thing, and this is the unlock, what happens is a lot of us will write 5 questions right in there. And as Jeff points out, what's so interesting is if you ask the questions one at a time, it allows the thing to help you think the thing through. And I do that now on almost every challenge that I have on. And it's amazing how it identifies, if let's say it's reviewed something that I wrote, said, you have 2 topics here. Which one is more important to you? Right. Right. That's a really great unlock for me right there. Right. That is. And so then finally, and this is the problem that most people focus on, what task is it that you want it to do for you? You do the interview one at a time before you say, at the end of this interview, you're going to help me do X. You're going to help me draft a framework for a strategic plan. You are going to help me put together a presentation for my boss. You are going to help me rethink our positioning, whatever it is that is top of mind for you. And you may have already had to help work with you on a strategic plan, and say you had 5 pillars on your plan. You're probably going through each of those pillars one at a time, and then you're going through 5 things. But at the end of it, you are the thinker. It's helping you as a partner. And this is a big difference.
I agree. And I would say that the other unlock, the other piece of that, is to always believe that you need to make it better. I was given great advice as a young copywriter that if somebody gave me a line or a slogan and everybody thought it was good, it was my job to go back and make it better.
Yes.
So what AI presents to me, I look at and go, I need to make this better. That's where the critical thinking comes in. That's where our product, gains more value. So I just think everybody needs to think of it just as you just described. It's a starting point.
Yeah, and it's interesting. 2 thoughts on that. One, Jeff Woods would say, I ignore about 80% of the first
yes,
thing.
Thank you, Jeff.
So I think that's really good. Now, what happens, though, is, and I've heard CMOs complain about this, they'll give a copywriting task to a junior person, and they'll put in a prompt, which will be okay. The copy will come back, and then they'll just give it more and more and more prompts on top of that. And it's like 77 times later, and it's just garbage at the end. And so the reason there's so much AI slop is, one, people they just take the first one because they don't know better. Right. And this is the critical thinking that, Mark, you were talking about. They simply don't know what good is. And so you want average, you get it that first draft. Now, Nicole Leffer, who's an AI advisor who we've had at some of our strategy labs and on Renegade Thinkers Unite, she'll talk about how the next big mistake is you keep whittling on that original prompt. She would say, don't. Go back to the first prompt and fix that. And have it start
great
again.
Advice. Yes.
So, nice little, and I certainly have seen that be the case.
So do you think that CMOs, since you talk to so many of them, are going to help their teams with this learning curve? Are they going to be able to have the time to put in the effort to be able to make this a tool that helps everyone? or they just want to speed through things and get to revenue?
Yeah. So here's the interesting thing. So we've been doing our strategy labs. We were on the road for 4 days, New York, Boston, or Boston, New York, Durham, and Atlanta. And so we were with 40 CMOs over the course of those 4 days. And I will tell you categorically that every single one of those CMOs has various levels of initiative to help train their teams. Now, are they doing all training on the same tools? Are they doing the training as best as they can? There's a lot of variation in terms of it. Are they just giving a training once? Is it training with a purpose? So on top of that, I would say another 25 to 30% of those, plus others I've talked to, are actually analyzing where their team members are, not just their team, but sometimes across the company on a scale of 1 to 5. 5 being, somebody working for Anthropic creating an LLM, and 1 being someone who never uses it, right? Yep. And their goal is to say, it is unacceptable to be an employee who's a 1. We don't expect you to be a 5, but we're going to help you to get to a 3. And it's on you to do this. And we're going to give you all the tools. We're going to help you do it. But, if you don't start to show that you're going to get there, and it's a tricky area because you can game the system, and I do think like any kind of coursework, it can be tricky. But when you help them, and again, I don't think the CMO has to do this themselves. There are professional trainers out there, and a lot of them talking about a business growth area. I know a lot of folks who are doing very well training companies right now on how to use these tools. So the CMO doesn't have to do it, but they do have to have we're here, we want to get here because of this. Because our big goal is to transform marketing into the most effective, demand generation and brand building engine in history.
When you talked about goal setting, my mind went directly to annual reviews. And I know that sometimes can be, a kind of a weird concept, but we put goals in annual reviews and goals to get better at today's incredible tools is probably a good thing.
Yes, I think annual. I mean, one of the things we didn't talk about is timeframes, and one thing that AI is doing is accelerating everything. Whereas it might have been, you could reposition a company and say, you got 2 years with that. You're going to be out. Now you're lucky to get a year out of a repositioning because it's just so easy for competitors to borrow your brilliant language to copy what it is you're doing. So I don't think, and the pace of the change of the technology, I don't think if you are doing annual reviews in the context of AI usage, that's problematic to me. This has got to be something that you're checking in with minimally quarterly. And again, there are companies out, and this is another business. There's companies that are monitoring employee usage of these tools. But, to me, it's not how many hours are you using ChatGPT? It's like, are you presenting to me better quality solutions faster than you did 2 years ago? Because suddenly you can do things you could never do. And I think this is where one thing is going to change. CMOs are going to really focus on hiring curious, tech-open employees, right? It'd be great if you could hire writers because they're the best thinkers. So writers who are curious, who are tech-oriented, hasn't always been a great mix, but that's because those individuals could do probably just about anything.
Exactly right.
I like that.
I think you actually told us a story once about somebody who helped their CMO write a presentation on the spot at a conference. Can you tell us that story again?
So it's funny. I remember you put that in the notes, and I was racking my brain this morning, but it was the short version of it was the CEO called them in the middle of the night, said, hey, I just realized that we had this hole. Do you think you could pull together a presentation? And here are some of my initial thoughts. And in this particular case, I mean, I believe the CMO had already created a boss GPT and had already sort of captured the essence of what the boss was thinking about, the CEO was thinking about strategically. So they were able to literally take all this input from the CEO, input it into their GPT, outline and get out an outline that they could quickly share and say, does this sound like what you're thinking about? The CEO said, oh my God, it's like you're reading my mind. And then from there, I think they used another tool that is specific to, presentation creation and pulled it off. And that kind of scenario could never have happened beforehand. It would have been an all-nighter. You would have need designers and you would have need it's kind of mind-boggling.
It makes everyone a hero. Everyone, right? Yeah.
It also reinforces the old axiom, make the boss look good. It doesn't hurt you.
Right, right. I like the concept of boss GPT. That's pretty cool too.
That's a logo right there. That's a new logo right there.
I have a number of, I can't tell you how many of the CMOs in our community. I mean, I've written about it a lot to them and I know many of them do it. And I want to clarify two things. One, this is not cheating. There's an offense part of it and a defense part of it. The offense part of it is the better you understand anybody, the more effective you will be at communicating to them, right? So that's a given. That's a given. So what does that mean? You have to load the GPT with everything. Let's say this person has been extensive writer and written a lot. Oh, by the way, I know a CEO who created a GPT of themselves and shared it with their executive team and said, hey, use this before you bring stuff to me, because that way you'll know how I'm going to respond to things. So the offense part of this is you are just better prepared. And I'll just tell you a story. I'm on a board of a nonprofit and I took all the information that I got for a strategic plan. And I felt unfairly prepared when I went into this meeting. The good news was it was really helpful for the nonprofit to get that kind of feedback. It was my thinking with some help. And so you're not abdicating thinking, but you are using it. And so the offensive part of this is build a job, the boss GPT, so that you can anticipate the questions that you're going to be asked, so that you could think through the objections, the things they're going to like, and you're just more prepared. There's a defensive part of this, which is your boss probably is going to just throw whatever you send them into a GPT with a bad prompt. And they're going to get a weak answer. Like I literally have a CMO whose CEO said, hey, I asked the GPT whether or not we should raise prices. It said no. Right. That was and so you what? Need to sort of, yeah, exactly. So if they're going to put your thing into it, you might as well do that exercise first in a regular GPT. So there's offense and defense here. And it extends to boards and so forth. And it doesn't take very long to put these together. And if you're into a certain personality type profile like DISC or Myers-Briggs or whatever, those can be helpful too.
But don't you flat out hate the term, I threw this into something? How many execs, well, maybe they do throw things into something, but I don't know. Well,
no, I mean, look, they go home and they go to their country club and they say, hey, what do you think of this idea? I mean,
yeah.
They as much as they're data driven, they're also anecdata driven. I was talking to a customer who loved this campaign. Thank you. You're doing great. That's been the story of marketing forever.
Yeah.
Well, is it time, do you think?
Yeah, let's do it. Okay. All right, Drew. We're going to have to process everything you just told us. But in the meantime, let's just play a game.
Okay.
Let's wrap this up with a lightning round. We're going to just make a statement. And you're going to get to answer bull or no bull. But of course, you can elaborate with your bull or no bull answer. Okay? All right. Are you ready?
Yes.
All right. AI will eliminate more marketing jobs than it ever creates.
Bull.
Marketers who ignore AI.
Wait, can I get
Yeah,
you can't just
sure
stop
you can.
that.
Elaborate. I got to hear
Oh my
it.
God. I mean, so there is going to, again, this is why there's a subtlety here. There will be marketing jobs lost. But what I'm hearing from savvy CMOs is, yes, we have a smaller copywriting team, but we have a couple senior editors who are really good, who are preventing it from having slot. But we now have an AI ops person that we never had before. And we have some folks that are supporting sales in a way that we never had before. So we're able to take folks, we're still as efficient or more productive as we ever have. And the company wants to grow 20%. So if we don't add staff, but we help the company grow 20% with the same staff, we're heroes, right? So where this imbalance comes from when you say, cut the marketing staff by 20% and try to grow by 20%, you have, at least in the short term, because AI doesn't work every time. It doesn't work for every solution. You can invest a lot of time and you suddenly built this pilot and it doesn't work. Right. So the folks that, their apocryphal stories, hey, we fired all our SEO people. Oops, that was dumb. We fired all our customer service people. Oops, It doesn't work. You could try to eliminate all your marketing jobs, but you're going to have a problem and it'll show up in your pipeline in 6 to 12 to 18 months.
So, Bull or no Bull? Marketers who ignore AI today will still have thriving careers 5 years from now.
Bull. Yeah, they're done. They're done.
I think that's the best short answer for sure. All right, here's another one. We were talking about timelines, right? CMOs who don't build an AI strategy in the next 12 months will fall behind their competition.
No Bull with a caveat.
Let's hear it.
So if you're in technology, there's no doubt. If you're in manufacturing or you're in some other category that is moving very slowly, I mean, there are still companies out there whose lawyers will not let them use AI internally because they're worried about copyright infringement and other things. So there are, however, if I flip it and say every CMO who is driving the AI strategy at the company, is essentially driving the transformation of the company, those are going to be the stars.
Bull or no Bull? Every marketer should have their own version of a boss GPT.
No Bull. Build it. Do it.
Build it, do it. Absolutely. All right. Final question. AI will ultimately make marketers more creative, not less.
Oh. AI will, it's Bull, I think.
Okay.
and the Bull part is, I think only humans will be able to make marketing more creative. And
nice
I really think that's true on multiple levels, because I think, so if marketing is about helping a brand differentiate, stand out in a crowd, and communicating that story to customers, prospects, employees, and so forth, it's the creative things that will stick. I mean, most likely the one thing you will remember from this conversation is 70 degrees and penguins in a huddle.
You're right. Yeah. So, all right, Drew, we'll tally up the Bull to Bull scorecard later. But before we go, there's one thing we'd love to know. If marketers remember one thing about AI, what should it be?
What you have in your hands today is the worst it will ever be. It's only going to get more powerful.
I like that.
It's only going to get more powerful. Yeah, that's the dawn of any industrial revolution. It always got better. So there you go. That's a great way to end this episode. And we can't thank you enough for being here and sharing all of that with us. I mean, really, it's very heartening, but we all know what we need to do. So thank you for all of that wisdom.
Well, thank you for having me. And by the way, as a longtime podcast host, I know what it takes to produce a show, and I really am grateful for the effort that you two put in. So thank you for doing this.
Well,
and for folks who want to follow up, what's the best way they should do that, do you think, with you?
Best is LinkedIn. I'm all over it. Just type in Drew Neisser. They should be able to find me, Neisser, and that's a great place to start.
Great. I think you're going to have to look out because there's going to be a flood in your inbox.
I love it. I look forward to it.
Oh, great. Thank you again. I'm just
Thank
going
you.
to ask our listeners to do one quick thing for us. Share this episode. Share it
Yeah.
once, share it twice, share it with your friends, share it with your colleagues. This is all the kind of information, but it was really structured very positively that is going to help us all, gain from this new era that we're in. Thank you, Drew.
Bye. Thank you.
Bye.